Can you hear that?
I heard that, yeah. It's either a cat or you've trapped a little old lady under the cabinet and she's trying to get her way out. Kat, why don't we start the way Will starts? So you want to do the honors?
Me? I get to try this?
Yes, of course you. Absolutely.
Wow. Okay.
You have seniority.
Okay, I may have seniority, but you're taller. I mean.
That's the deciding factor.
Okay, I can do this. All right. Mm-hmm. Is this where I put on my Will voice? Welcome back to another episode of 1980s Now, a weekly examination of the importance of 1980s pop culture and its continued influence today.
Bravo. Bravo. Will who? Wow, Kat. Outstanding.
If you say so.
It is. So our dear friend and esteemed leader and primary host of this show is not here.
No, he's not.
Will is currently under the weather, recovering on the mend, doing well. We were off last week.
Yes.
And he really needed one more week off. I would not. Look, I'm a pansy. I would definitely have not been here in his condition. So I don't blame him at all. So Will is like, we need one more week off, really. But we know Will well enough to know it's killing him to not have a show 2 weeks in a row.
Killing him.
So while the boss is away, the kids from the back seat are going to play.
I got to say, I miss Will. Will, I miss you. But this is kind of so much fun. I feel like we stole the keys. Like we're sneaking out with the keys to the car.
Who knew you could have had more fun if we just got Will off the show? Now we know. But it's only fun because we took his keys. If he wasn't there to have the keys, no fun. No fun.
Oh, exactly. Yes. No, it's all in the proper context of fun. Yeah.
So wonderful 1980s Now listeners. What we're going to do here is a pale imitation of what Will does. Yes. Look, you listen to the show, Will host the show, and we mess up the show. That's our job, but now we have to try to carry the weight.
How are we going to do this? Oh my gosh.
So in this episode, we've decided two things. We're going to bring you some 1980s news, including a Toxic reboot on the way. And you see, I'm doing the thing.
You are doing the thing.
Another facet of hip hop gets the spotlight on the 50-year anniversary of the founding and origin of hip hop. And a little bit later, we're going to have a topic that we've specifically selected to talk about because Will's not here and he doesn't care. So all that is coming.
He won't feel left out.
No.
I feel a little bad talking about hip hop without Will. But
I don't.
We can
I'll do it. I'll take care of it. So all with that, it's time for some news. Dun, 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 dun.
All right. 1980s news. Here we are. Do I go
what do you
first?
got, Kat? Lay it on us. Yeah.
I got this. According to Entertainment Weekly, and I typed the Hollywood Reporter. It says Hollywood instead of Hollywood.
Ooh, Hollywood. That's
the
nice.
Hollywood Reporter. That's a new publication. The Toxic Avenger is cleaning up in first look at new version of cult classic. This is all a quote, by the way. I forgot to say quote. The Peter Dinklage starring film will receive a world premiere at this year's Fantastic Fest in Austin, end quote. So it seems that the Toxic Avenger will be the opening night film at the Austin-based Genre Festival, which runs September 21st to the 28th. And the film is written and directed by Oppenheimer actor Macon Blair and stars, as stated already, Peter Dinklage. John, did you know that Will knows Peter Dinklage?
What?
Go for it.
Get out of town. Oh, I don't have the horn set up. I only do it.
Okay, do it with your voice.
Look, I didn't think anybody would do a name drop, so I didn't even bother hooking up the horn sound. Oh my gosh. There we go. Okay.
I
didn't know you would do it.
It's the first
like
thing
close
I think
personal
of.
friends?
They performed together at the New Jersey Shakespeare Festival.
Get out of town. Oh my
I'm
God.
serious.
That would be a triple air horn if Will were here. Oh my goodness.
Absolutely. Well, you just can do it with your voice as many times as you wish throughout this. Okay, so starring Peter Dinklage as Toxie is his name in the movie, the title character. And as well as Jacob Tremblay, Taylor Page, Sarah Niles, Julia Davis, Julian Kostov, Elijah Wood, and everyone's favorite degree measurement, Kevin Bacon, is also in this film.
Kat, do you know the Toxic Avenger? Have you seen the film? Do you know it? The trauma kind of low budget deal?
That was my question for you later. I actually have this written down. Are you familiar with the 1984 original, John? I confess I have not watched it. It's on my endless watch list. It just hasn't quite made it.
The ever growing.
Up to the top. It's always growing, and it's very hard to choose what to do next. So no, but I'm guessing you have. Is this something you're familiar with?
So I don't know it well. I know I saw it in my youth. So it's made by Trauma Entertainment, which is, I know them more by reputation than by their films themselves as being these underground, indie, low budget, and yet super cult following film producer. And Toxic Avenger is emblematic of that in so many ways, because it's a guy with a costume, and he was like on the poster, you'll see him because when I say the actor is like in a costume, and it's like he's all deformed and mutated and his weapon is like this big mop because he was a janitor, I think. So he carries this big mop to club bad guys with. And the only downside to this for me is that they're doing it as, is it a reboot? Is it a continuation? Like, it sounds like it's going to be a reboot.
It's a reboot, John. And that was going to be my next question to you, how you might feel about this. Well, I'll tell you a little bit more about it, although it sounds like you already know that it's a reimagining is what this article said.
Reboot.
I saw that eye roll of the 1984 horror comedy, and finds, as you said, a janitor, a quote, downtrodden janitor. And
played by Peter Dinklage.
Exactly. And get this name, Winston Goose. His name,
yes,
the janitor's
that's
name is Winston Goose.
That's his first name, or his name before he becomes Toxie, right?
Exactly, before Toxie. He suffers a toxic accident, and he transforms into a new mop-wielding evolution of hero.
You know, I'm not as passionate. I don't know how to. Some people who absolutely love Toxic Avenger and trauma films, this will be sacrilege. But because it was done on a shoestring, I can see why someone would want to then give it the big budget treatment. I understand the desire. And if you're going to do the story, you want to do the origin story, which you're going to do. That's what the first film was. That's, So to continue, it would mean you couldn't do the origin story. And since the origin story never got the big budget treatment, the original film is just a classic cult favorite. It's not going anywhere. So this is almost something I can, not what you expected probably, I could forgive a reboot here because of the nature of the original. It wasn't like, it's not Ghostbusters. It's not Back to the Future. Those films got the treatment they needed,
Yes.
Yeah, Toxic Avenger didn't really.
It didn't. And I think I have heard you say this. And I didn't think of that. It's like it's perhaps deserving of something better, a different presentation. Yep. Yeah. All right. That's cool. Very good.
And for naysayers, the beauty is the old one's not going anywhere, right?
Exactly.
If you hate the reimagining, just don't watch it and love the thing that you love. But maybe there'll be something to love in the new one too, so.
Maybe there will be, like Peter Dinklage.
Like Peter Dinklage. Like Kevin Bacon, for heaven's sake.
Or like Kevin Bacon or Elijah Wood or whoever.
Oh my goodness. You know what that means?
Right?
That means that Will is only one step away from Kevin Bacon, because he can connect from Will to Peter Dinklage to Kevin Bacon. His Kevin Bacon score is 1. Damn it, Will.
Oh, man.
This is crazy. Oh, you're killing me.
Oh, boy. Wow, I didn't even contemplate that. All right. Well, as you pointed out, the original, actually, which was mostly ignored when it was first released, It's a cult classic now. It was directed by Michael Hertz and Lloyd Kaufman, and based on a story by Kaufman with a screenplay by Joe Ritter. It seems a long run in the midnight movie engagement in 1985 at the Bleecker Street Cinema in New York City helped to boost the original movie's popularity. And also Hertz and Kaufman are involved. They're producing the new movie.
Oh, good. Awesome. Spectacular.
Right?
Now that lends some credibility.
There you go.
That lends some credibility and credence to the thing, right?
Absolutely. I felt like maybe if you were totally off board, then that might help you bring a little bit on board. But you are already a little bit on board. So
now I'm more on board.
You're even more on board the boat. I didn't know this prior, but there were 3 sequels to the original movie. Yep. There was a short-lived television series, a video game, and a musical, as we learned during our episode where Will and I made you feel jealous talking about Back to the Future, right? We learned that there's a Toxic Avenger musical. So, and just one other thing I want to mention here. I'm not sure that this deserves an air horn exactly, but did you also know that part of the original movie was filmed in Will's hometown of Jersey City, New Jersey?
Of course it was. If Will had said that, he'd have gotten the horn for sure. Yes.
There you go. So I believe it was a car chase scene, something like that.
And it was Will's car, I'm sure. They drove by Will's house. He was standing out front. Will.
And among many other films at this festival, also showing is Paramount Plus's Pet Sematary Bloodlines, which is a prequel, right? A prequel to the 2019 reboot of the 1983 book, of course, by Stephen King. I just thought that was a little interesting.
I was okay with that reboot. It wasn't terrible.
Were you? And more details about Fantastic Fest can be found at their website for anyone who's interested.
Odds are there's probably going to be some times in the show notes so you can go directly to that part and probably a link to this thing. And who knows what crazy stuff. See, we don't do any of the after the show work. We just sit here and distract Will until it's over and he goes and does the work. So he still has to do that here. It's just he's not here to distract. So
he's not here to distract. I wonder if he's distracted like right now listening or if we're just distracting each other.
Oh, well, you're not distracting me. So I'm sure we're distracting him.
I have to try harder.
If I'm not distracting Will, I'm not doing my job, quite honestly. So.
Same.
In other 1980s news, as featured on abcnews.go, also known as ABC News Outlet, Hip Hop at 50, how graffiti evolved from 1980s through today.
Ooh,
so are you a fan of graffiti? Are you a hater of graffiti? How do you feel about the graffitids? I don't know what's the plural of graffiti? Graffitis? Graffites? I don't know.
Graffitios.
Sure. Like Cheerios.
Like Cheerios or SpaghettiOs. Graffitios. Yeah.
So what's your opinion on graffiti when you see it?
Okay. Graffiti, in general, I don't have any issue with it, I think, in general. But I recall feeling a little bit trained when I was younger to think that it was a bad thing.
Right.
Yeah. And, or, an unsightly scourge on whatever surface it was on. But I've seen so much cool graffiti, and there's a few things from my childhood that I remember where graffiti's involved, and it's just somehow locked in as a cool thing. Like there was this giant rock, or like a very small hill with a rock face on it that we used to pass by all the time on a highway. Yeah, and it was covered with graffiti, and whenever we'd be almost there, I'd be anticipating, I'd be looking out the window. Oh, here comes that cool graffitied surface. And I'd try to take in as much of it as I could as we were passing by. And so I'm actually okay with graffiti. So how are you?
As an art form, it kind of came about along with hip hop. So per this article from ABC News, in 1980s New York, hip hop was the soundtrack of the city, blaring through neighborhoods on boom boxes. As the music solidified itself as part of New York culture, another expression, graffiti, emerged right alongside it.
Yeah.
Graffiti artists, known as writers, would sneak into rail yards late at night and stake their claim using paint cans instead of brushes turning subway cars into their canvases and hoping millions of daily commuters would see their work as their tags move across the city.
That's so cool.
But
no, I wonder, where does the word graffiti come from? How was that chosen? That just popped into my head. Do you know anything about that?
Base word the same as graphics, so I'm thinking it has something to do with drawing. It's got to be some kind of like the Latin. I don't know.
Yeah. Huh.
But as it was evolving, along with hip hop in New York, especially, a lot of people viewed it as a crime. Right? It's plaguing the city. It's vandalism. And there was a battle in New York City as teenage graffiti artists would thumb their nose at the city who were waging war against them under Mayor Ed Koch.
Yes.
Oh, how the tide has turned. So here we are 50 years on from kind of the origin of hip hop. This is covered in these articles. At ABC News, talked to several pioneering graffiti artists about the evolution. And one such writer named Wayne One recalls the very spots where he sprayed his art as a teen and what it was like when he began. And he begins, and I quote, "The train pulls in, right? I see my piece roll in. There's a bunch of guys standing there with their school bags and they're looking at it, right? Your art critics are right there. It's not like the art world," he told ABC News. Isn't that cool? Like he's looking at his audience as his art pulls into the station.
That's so cool. I respect that. Oh my gosh. I love that. Hey, did you ever see the Get Down? The series, The Get Down on Netflix?
No. Mm-mm.
If you're it's really cool. I really enjoyed it. It's all about the rise of hip hop and graffiti at that time. It's this period of time that we're talking about.
I think I know what you're talking about. The Get Down. It's about the rise of hip hop.
Yep.
I have seen the poster for it. Yep.
Yes. Now it's a fictionalized telling. It's not a documentary exactly, but it was created by Baz Luhrmann. And also involved, or who else? Stephen Adley. There's another name here I can't pronounce. But in collaboration with Oscar winner Catherine Martin, MC Nas, Grandmaster Flash, and hip hop. You're right. Yeah, he was involved. And hip hop historian Nelson George. It also stars Justice Smith, who was in the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Oh,
yeah. But anyway. When you were talking about the graffiti in your article there and the train pulling through with the artwork, that was a big feature in the Get Down. If I'm remembering correctly, like sometimes it was like maybe a scene switcher or an episode intro. It was
like a transition kind of deal.
Yeah.
Now, if you like that, they also mention in this article there are two documentaries that came out in 1983 that were following the emergence of hip hop.
Okay.
One was called Wild Style and the other was Style Wars.
And
now these were following, again, I said, the emergence of hip hop, but of course, graffiti was a part of that. It was part of this expression. And so many of these people that they talked to in this article were in that documentary.
Wow.
In fact, one of them,
cool.
now renowned artist Lee Quinones honed his craft painting subway cars, and now his work sells for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh my goodness. Wait, is he painting on something different besides subway trains now that he can sell it?
Well, he's painting everywhere. So graffiti artists now, they'll commission works to do the side of this building or to do a school mural or to do whatever, right? And they come in with their cans and their cardboard and all the things you need. And it's become a legitimate artwork that's known and respected. Something that started in the 80s as a crime is now a celebrated form of physical media and artwork. It's a great article, so maybe we can throw a link to it in the description of this show, but it's well worth reading.
Well, we won't. Will.
Yeah. No, will. Yeah. Listen, we could just give him all sorts of tasks. Also, I'd like indexed to what parts of the article I should read. I'd like links to where I can watch those two documentaries, Will. Just put it all in the show notes. Thank you so much.
We want all.
Okay.
Hey, that is so cool. And something just popped into my head as a comment before, and then it fell out right away.
Sorry.
Oh, I was no. I was going to say talk about a flip flop of the going from a crime to a highly desired.
It's a flip flop or a crisscross, if you will.
Even better.
Crisscross. All right, we're not going to beat that
now.
That was 1980s news.
Dun, dun, dun,
I guess.
dun,
Sure.
dun.
There's the song. Perfect. Hey, there have been a great many firsts for 1980s now as of late. We just talked a couple weeks ago, Kat, about we met for the first time in the same room at SFGE.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that was the best.
It was.
Yes.
And on that occasion, and I didn't realize, right, because you guys had been together for a while. You guys met in college. You knew one another. But it hadn't occurred to me that even though you had met in person, you had never recorded together in person. So that also was the occasion, the first time we have recorded this show together in the same room.
Yes.
But today is one more first. This is the first show that the primary host and founder of the show will not be present for because he's recuperating. So
he's earnestly recuperating, and this is it's so strange, but it also feels natural in a way. Like 6 months ago, I don't know. Could we have pulled this off? I don't know, maybe, but yeah.
We'll see there. He's trained the baby birds, and now he's showing us out of the nest. He's faking his illness. That's what it is.
Oh, I see now what this is all about.
So we talked about how to get a topic that would be appropriate and Will wouldn't miss out. So we chatted about it some.
So when I was out, you and Will chose a topic intentionally, like not to, you weren't trying to leave me out, but you were picking something that you thought perhaps I wouldn't be as interested in, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so, we're sort of going along the same theme today, although I have to say I was interested in what you guys were talking about, but I did not feel left out, of course, because I felt like, oh, well, I'm listening and this show is for me. So,
yeah.
But we did ask the question today, what topic do we know well? And Will, not so much, doesn't have any real knowledge of or interest in. And,
or care.
Or even care. And there's really, there's probably not only one answer, but there was one very obvious answer.
One immediate answer.
This question, the immediate one, yes. And that would be, how should we say the
That's right.
Trucking.
Professional, long haul, 18-wheeler, over the road trucking. Yeah. It was your first thought. It was my first thought because I knew that you and I have a commonality there because we'll talk about, and Will hates when we go off on trucking tangents. So what a better time to do a trucking tangent when he's not here to tell us to shut up. Perfect.
Yeah. All right. So we get to geek out over trucks.
Yeah. So why is it that we know so much about trucks and trucking?
My father was a trucker. Now, I know that yours also was. And of course, I always want to hear more about that. I perceive that your exposure to your father's work as a trucker, his career was more, you just had more exposure, I think, in the moment of him actively being a trucker. My exposure was more limited because when my father was a trucker, I was really young, like really too young to be aware of his role as a trucker. And the reason why that is, I do believe my father would have continued trucking if he could have, but he drove a tractor trailer, a portable parking lot, if you will.
Yes.
And he flipped it.
Oh my goodness.
There was some bad weather and he perhaps wasn't driving in a way that accommodated for the bad weather and full of cars.
Oh my God, it was loaded. Oh my God.
It was loaded.
Oh my God. Oh my, that's not just, that is a single vehicle multi-car collision is what that is.
Oh, it's just,
not just wrecked, flipped. Oh.
Flipped. So he was then blocked from trucking. He was not allowed to be a driver, truck driver anymore.
Got blackballed. I see.
He did indeed. And that's just one of many stories of my father that could be entertaining. By the time I became aware of whatever work he was doing, he was a roofer, and he did home repairs and things like that. But his love of trucking and his experience with it carried through. And we'll talk about this in a little bit. There was music associated with his love for that career that was shared with the family. And he kept his CB. He put that in his pickup truck, and then we would play with that sometimes. So I'll stop there. I think you have a little baseline there
Yeah. Well, you're right. I spent time on the road. So my dad drove a truck. My uncle drove a truck. My brother drove and still today drives a truck.
Oh my gosh.
Christmas breaks, I would go on the road with my dad on the truck. Oh, and you might mention, welcome to 1980s now. This will come around to the 80s eventually. I promise. It's getting there.
At some point.
But so I spent time in the culture, in the cab, in the truck with my dad, occasionally with my uncle, but not on long hauls, but long hauls with my dad, like 4 or 5 Christmases in a row. Like we got home Christmas Eve from a run for Christmas.
Wow.
Because I would go on vacation with him. I'd spend a week on the road or 2 weeks on the road and do that.
John,
and
that's so cool. Oh man.
It was neat.
I love it.
It was really cool. Yeah. At the time I didn't know what kind of vacation it was, because there are long stretches of boredom, but I don't remember those. I remember all the punctuated little moments of like, we're unloading here at the Kroger factory. I'm in the break room at the Kroger factory and they have a freezer full of popsicles for free. You know, just all this stuff that kids would go crazy over. Adults would go, a free popsicle. Me, I'm like, I'm going to get sick. Just come get me later. I'm going to sit here and get sick. Yeah. And CBs were a huge part of all of that, both in their trucks and in the pickups. And I had one in my pickup, a hand me down that somebody upgraded from. So I had one, and I had the big stupid whip antenna that you needed for CB radios back then.
Oh, right. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. My dad must have had one on his pickup truck. I'm
going to ask, speaking of CBs, do you remember your dad's CB handle?
I do. His handle was Odd Jobber.
Odd Jobber.
And that came from his doing odd jobs for people. Like eventually, like I suspect while he was trucking, he was still doing this, or even before.
Not from 007. Not from James Bond.
I love that. I love that you know that. It's not actually from that, but that's a fun connection to make. But my dad did lots of home repairs that he learned as a young adult. And he did odd jobs for people, and then he turned that into a career. And so Odd Jobber was his handle. What about your dad's handle?
My dad's was the Bushwhacker. I always loved that. Yeah. And I don't know where it came from, but not only is it, someone that's out in the field hacking down weeds or something, but also like it just has something like swashbuckling about it,
absolutely.
Like the word buckle is almost in there somewhere. Bushwhackers, pirates buckle, something. There's something really kind of primal about that. I always thought it was clever. And
love it.
It sounds just like 12% dirty also, which I thought was always fun. So
I do. Yes, I hear that. Yes.
Yeah, I like all of that. And so my handle when I got a CB.
Yes, tell me.
You pick your own handle, right? You pick your own handle. Of course, my mom was like, you could be Baby Bushwhacker or whatever. I'm like, A, not appropriate. B, no, it's not what I want. Right? So I'm not going to be the Baby Bushwhacker. I'm sorry. So what? What? Oh no, I broke a cat all by myself. I didn't need Will's help. What?
The matter of fact, you're like, Baby Bushwhacker, not appropriate, Mom.
It's not. No. And don't make me tell you why. So because I was getting into video games and arcades and stuff, I chose joystick as my handle.
Which I love that because I can picture an Atari joystick.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
You say that. That's what pops into my head. Gotta say, though, there is a small percentage of that someone could interpret as inappropriate.
They could. Listen, if you're going to compare joystick and Baby Bushwhacker, which one's worse? Okay. Did you have a handle? Did you? I know you were after the fact. Did you have a handle? You did. Oh, what was it?
I did. Yep. Pink Panther was my handle that I chose. Yes. Yes.
Is it because of the cartoon or because of the
It's because of the
films?
cartoon.
The cartoon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You know what? The films I became aware of later, and I was confused by them. I was like, where is the cartoon panther?
Right.
Where is he?
I don't see. Where's the inspector? Where's the pink cat? I'm just going.
There's only people in this movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, it came from the cartoon, and and I picked my own for that. There were my sister had a handle too.
Ooh,
just thought I'd share that. I thought hers was pretty cool. It was Wonder Woman.
Oh,
she chose Wonder Woman.
I was laying money on Baby Oddjobber. Didn't work out.
Baby Oddjobber. Could that be inappropriate? I have to think.
I'm sure it could if we could find a way.
We could make it inappropriate somehow.
So let's try to close in on the 1980s-ness of this finally.
Okay.
And I think a nice bridge to get us to that part is a part that you and I love about trucking culture.
Yeah.
And that's the subgenre of music that comes out of trucking culture that grew up in the 70s and 80s, right?
Yes.
When you made me my own mixtape, what was that mixtape full of?
Trucker songs.
Trucker songs? Of course it was.
Trucker songs. I couldn't not do it. I said, this is it.
Yep.
Yep. And I just need to point out here when you so wisely created that Google Doc for us today. That was super fun, by the way. Like who would have thought I'd be like, wow, a Google Doc, so fun, right? Because we were both.
That's the highlight of my day today.
It really was. The Google Doc was the highlight of my day.
It was a rough day. Sorry to hear that.
And then when I guess I typed in music, and then you put an exclamation point. And I loved that. And so I added more exclamation points. And then you added more exclamation points.
That's how important it is.
We were
That's how important. Yeah.
We were both like honing in on that little bit. So I love it.
Teddy Bear and Phantom 309 and Give Me 40 Acres and
The White Knight.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
The Old Home Filler Up and Keep on Truckin' Cafe.
Yes. Yeah.
Man. And of course,
I can hear it in my brain. I can hear it right now. Oh, keep on trucking. Oh, home, keep on trucking. Oh, yeah.
Yes. Oh, they're the best. Can I tell you a story involving the music?
No. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Now, this was my first like Aruga moment involving the music. You were actually the second one.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So this music was playing, especially from this one album called Big Rig Hits? Red album with a big, what do you call it? A cab over, right?
A cab over.
I think it had a cab over.
I think it's a big Kenworth maybe. Yeah.
Oh yeah, or something. I think it's on. Here's my cab over. Of course, I'm nobody can see me, but I'm holding up a Pez dispenser.
That's perfect. Oh, hold on. This is the part where Will would criticize you for showing a prop that the listeners can't hear. So I want to make sure I get that in. So
go ahead, do it.
Consider yourself criticized. Go ahead. Okay, I don't mind.
All right, I'll move on. You like seeing the toy. So we would be playing this album at home, and we loved it. We just loved it. And I was pretty young, 6, 7, 8, something like that, and I could tell that there was a novelty aspect to it. Of course, I wasn't using that word at the time, but there was something playful about it. There was something kind of tongue in cheek about it.
Kind of silly, kind of funny, kind of, light. Yeah.
Absolutely. And of course that, appealed, to, it just appealed to me, and it was super fun. Of course. And then at some point, it wasn't really something I thought about. I'm sure it was when the 80s rolled around, and then suddenly there was Casey Kasem's Top 40 and, all kinds of other music on the radio.
That rolled off the back of your attention, right? You weren't paying attention to it. Yeah.
I wasn't at all paying attention to it. For, let's see, 12 or 13 years at least. Okay. I don't think it entered my brain at all. It was just not something I thought about. So, at the college that I went to, I worked there after graduation, and I'm sitting there having lunch with some friends who also went there and worked there. And but the person who I consider to be a best friend was talking about something. I can't remember the context, but all of a sudden she said, what did she? Mercy sakes alive. Looks like we've got ourselves a convoy.
I heard that coming, and it sparked for you, didn't it?
Oh, John, I can't overstate. I really cannot overstate what happened in my brain. It was a whoosh. It was a zap. It was an auga.
Those fireworks. You're like, oh, it was gone. Like it just came back alive. I know just what you're talking about. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I wasn't trying to forget it. Like it was buried and whoosh. And I think I might have fallen off my chair. I don't know. I know my jaw hit the floor. And I was probably staring at my friend wide-eyed. And in that moment, we both realized, because she looked back at me, she realized I knew, and I knew she knew, and we had a link. We already had things in common, plenty.
Right. Yeah.
And we were already best buddies, but that just locked it right.
Yep.
And it was an amazing sharing moment. And so then when, finding out yours and my connection.
Yes. I gotta say, that happened to you and I too. The same thing. Like we were already becoming friends through this show. And then somebody mentioned Convoy. I forget what happened. I mentioned that dad was a truck driver or something. Maybe like, what? Like
what? Your dad was a what? Oh, yes. So that was another awesome moment. I just want to take a moment and share something else you can put on your Will hat. So this here's a birthday card. It says breaker.
Another prop.
You can probably read it.
Right.
Yeah, it's another prop. Breaker, good buddy. This here's the Funsters Hall and cake and candles for sure. And then so it's 2007. I still have it. Okay, my friend sent this to me in 2007. You open it.
This is Big Ben. This here's a rubber duck, and I'm about to put the hammer down.
I was about to say, I hope when you open it, it makes a bump noise. Even better, plays Convoy.
Actually, I wish it did both, but now this is from, I can't close it until it's done. I can't cut it off.
I can, but I won't, is what she means.
This here's the duck. All right, there we go. I can shut it now. All right. So in 2007, she found this, right? Like this card. And that also blew my mind in a similar way. It's like, this exists? Okay, I'm done with my story.
Well, because as we segue into the part that, hey, we're to the 80s part. We finally got there with the music and stuff. But
yay.
So that's our connection to it. And that was kind of our premise. But there's, as I dug into it, so many people, like, this is going to be interesting to you and to me, peripherally to Will, and to 7 old people like us who drive trucks. But there's so many aspects of truck driving that came out of the 70s and 80s that have changed dramatically.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Or anything. Yeah. I mean, so for example, what a lot of people might not know is that truck driving kind of like morphed as a career that you would have, right? So you had just a few companies that did all the truck driving, but then in the 80s, they passed this bill called the Motor Carrier Act.
Okay.
And effectively what it did is deregulated. Remember when they deregulated TV and suddenly we had He-Man and commercials for toys and stuff? Well, the Motor Carrier Act of 1980 deregulated the trucking industry. So we had tons more companies that had trucks. Plus we had lower pay for truck drivers. And that was kind of the rise of the owner operators because they were not able to get the work that they needed.
Okay.
And then another one in 82 added in all these big limits to make it even harder for truckers. Look, you and I won't debate this. Some people go, that's hyperbole, but truck drivers are one of the essential lifeblood elements of the continental United States. They move things. If something has to go from here to there, it might fly, but you know where it gets off the plane to? A damn truck. It is vital.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
So the surface transportation. I know.
Right. Yeah. And during the pandemic and all, like where the shipping just ramped up. Yeah.
If you buy it at Walmart, it came off a truck at some point. Yeah. Guaranteed. So that Surface Transportation Assistance Act of 82 sounds all beneficial, but actually it established like limits for weight and standardizing truck size and things like that.
Sure.
And it added, you had scales you had to go through and you had to do log books and stuff like that. Stuff that was all analog.
Sorry along the side of the highway, way station ahead and way station closed, open, all that. Yeah.
And I can tell you, going through one of those, I went with my dad, who sometimes hauled different things. He drove tankers, he drove refrigerated vehicles, he drove just standard, freight. And I've gone through a way station with my dad, and we had to pull over and move freight around because one axle was too heavy. We had to redistribute the weight because it was too much. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not something you think about. Wow.
It's to protect the interstate, not too much weight on a single axle. I understand why you do it, but it's the bane of the existence of truckers. But
wow.
Yeah.
Well, he's lucky he had you there to help haul it around his back there.
to move. Oh, I spent plenty of time unloading watermelons at grocery stores, believe me.
Oh, wow. And then you're like, where's my popsicle? I deserve a popsicle.
You chuck them like footballs. That's right. Unlimited. It's inside. I know.
So was anything else changing at that time? Is anything else different?
CB radios were huge, of course.
Yeah, well, of course. Yeah.
Now they're nearly, are they, could you still get a CB radio? You got to be able to get one, I'm sure.
Guess what? There's one in my basement.
Is there? Okay.
There is. I don't know if it works. It belonged to my father-in-law because he wasn't a trucker, but he liked toys.
Yeah.
He just liked to play with stuff.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know if you can get them new. I'm sure we could find out pretty easily.
They were universal. Every truck, if you didn't have a CB radio, if your CB radio broke, you stopped at the next truck stop and got one. It was an absolute necessity. Is how you talk to other truckers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. It's like cell phones nowadays. I mean, do truckers rely on CBs the same way that they used to now?
Well, I don't know. I haven't really talked to my brother about how he uses. I know he has a radio in his truck, but I'm guessing it's a digital band, or maybe does it go through the internet? I don't know. Honestly, well, I guess I should have talked to my brother before doing this show to ask him. But
nice research.
I know he uses digital technology in his driving, but I don't know, like he does his logs online and things like that. But
yeah.
I mean, you definitely drive. There are large swaths of the country that don't have cell service in the Midwest. So you gotta probably, if you're going to communicate, that's probably, it's, what is it, line of sight or a little better? I don't know how several miles it goes out, but
I don't remember how many, but certainly it is limited. Yeah. It's
to talk within the bubble of people who are in your region. Like, how's the road conditions? Is it raining? Are there cops? Where's Smokey? Exactly.
Is there bear in the air?
Is there bear in the air? I also learned that I never knew this. I don't know if my dad did this, but
what?
Because there was no international database, truckers would get licenses in multiple states.
Oh.
And so when they get pulled over, they'd keep track of on which tickets they got citations.
Oh my gosh.
And they would give you a different license to make sure they didn't get too many points on any given license.
Okay, so I'm thinking of my father now. I wonder how many tickets he had on how many licenses.
Odd Job had several licenses, I have no doubt.
Yes, he probably had multiple licenses with multiple tickets or citations on each one of them.
The other one I found that was fascinating that you may or may not have thought about, but
what's that?
Paying for things. Credit cards were fine, but there weren't like, network connected, wherever you go, your card works kind of thing without swiping the card, ka-chunking and trusting that it worked. Right. And truck stops didn't. You buy fuel, you buy hundreds of dollars of fuel when you fuel up. And truck stops didn't want to get stuck with that. So there were two key ways. So truckers had to carry like literal coins to pay tolls and stuff and to make phone calls. But also they had this thing called comm checks. You remember this?
No.
It's like a check, but what you do is you fuel up. First, you get the comm check, you take it in, the person sees it in the truck stop, you fuel up, then you find out the total, and they will send you an electronic authorization number that you could put on the check to guarantee that they will be paid. Because there just wasn't the infrastructure for driving long distance. Yeah, you could pay within your region. This works. You have an account at the local store, but driving all over the place, nope.
Something else you don't think about, the logistics of paying for all that fuel. Wow.
And the last little thing I found that I think is really fascinating that has largely gone away today, and you mentioned it a second ago.
I did?
Is the difference between conventional and cab-over trucks. The trucks that had the long nose. That's almost all you see anymore. And cab-over trucks are gone now. Have you noticed that? Have you thought about that?
I it's not something I've thought of. It's not in the forefront of my brain, but now that you say it, because I'm around a lot of trucks. I do, especially lately over the past 6 months, I've been doing a lot of driving. And there's the route that I take is Interstate 78. Trucks, all the time, all going on both sides. And I can't say that I've seen any cab overs. Wow.
So do you have any guess why they went away? because they have their pros and cons. There's better handling, so easier to steer because it's a tight turning radius.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, because the nose isn't so far out. The wheels are right there, right?
That's right. Think about that.
You have any idea what negatives there would be or why you wouldn't want to drive a cab over?
I'm thinking about myself. I might feel a little freaked out being so close to the front. Like, ooh.
Safety is a part of it.
Okay.
Yep. It's a little less safe because there's not so much between you and the front of the truck.
Less
That's
buffer.
One.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
They said it was also a very rough ride because you're right on the wheels.
Wow. Okay. Yes.
And have you ever thought about how you get to the motor of a cab over? You've seen it. You lean the whole cab forward because the engine is up underneath you.
Yeah. That's
so what would often happen is
if
you had a sleeper, you had to crawl through a little hole into the sleeper. It was a separate part.
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow.
So all those conveniences and inconveniences, really, they say it's come down to the fact that regulations relaxed on weight and length, especially. So a cab over truck would save you like 12 foot on the front of your truck to have a longer load. Well, now they've forgiven that. And so the benefits of more safety, easier to maintain, smoother ride, nicer amenities, all that has meant pretty much the end of cab over trucks for the most part.
That's so interesting. I find this interesting. I'm wondering if Will is finding this interesting.
Absolutely not. 0% interesting.
It just popped into my head. He's like, what? What is this podcast about? But I find that interesting. And now whenever I drive, I'm going to keep my eyes open. I'm going to be looking.
You're going to look for one. If you see a cab over, take a picture because I don't see them. If you see one, I'll send you a picture if I see one.
All right. Okay. Deal.
All right.
That is wild.
All right. Before we get out of the 80s portion of our 1980s now, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about how truck driving seeped into our media.
We would indeed be remiss.
TV shows that we liked. I bet you have some favorites.
I do. Okay. I have to say, the ones that are strongest in my mind are Smokey and the Bandit, the movie. And I have a hint about this. I know that you have feelings about this movie. I forget how I know that. How do I know that? I heard you say it on a podcast, maybe.
You did. Yes.
And also haven't seen it in a super long time and feel like I want to watch it now because we're talking about it. BJ and the Bear with Greg
the
Evigan.
TV show.
Yeah, the TV show. Yes.
That was like the TV version of Clint Eastwood's Any Which Way You Can or Any Which Way But Loose.
Oh,
because I think one had a chimp and the other one had an orangutan, I think is what it was.
Okay. Yes. Actually, I think the show is the chimp, right? The smaller, I think you're right. I think you're right. Yeah. Primate. Yeah. I must have
right turn, Clyde. Punch. You know that? Yeah.
It's there's a bell in my head ringing, but it's like I need to see it. Okay. I need to watch it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Instead of us just throwing inside jokes at each other, I'll explain. Right Turn Clyde. Well, that was from the Clint Eastwood films, and his orangutan Clyde sat in the right hand, the passenger seat. And what would happen if somebody would be standing up on the tank talking in the window? And he had taught Clyde to give hand signals for left and right turns. And so when he would go, right turn, Clyde would punch the livid crap out of whoever was right outside the window, knock them off the tank, and he'd drive off. And so that became a shorthand in my family for, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Go away. You know, like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, right turn, Clyde. I'm done with you. Punch. Right.
Oh, I love that.
You're right.
That is great. And I feel like I must have seen it. It would be so long ago.
You had to.
I had to have, because my father, who was in charge of the TV, for much of my childhood, a lot of these things I saw because of him. And I must have seen it. It's definitely ringing a bell.
You're right. And what you alluded to, my connection with Smokey and the Bandit is that like that series of films was just my dad's favorite. It was a Western or a truck driving movie because it spoke to him,
Yes. Yeah.
And it's because I only love that film because of my memories of that film, because not intentionally at first, but now I have not rewatched it since he passed away in 91.
I am aware of that.
Just
That's what I was thinking.
Partially because there's an emotional attachment, and partially because I'm worried that it won't hold up or it'll change my perception of it. And I don't want that to tarnish my memory of my dad loving it, you know? So it's not like a super mushy thing. It's more of just a, let's just leave it be. Let's leave it where it is in my memory is kind of.
I respect that. Absolutely respect that. Yeah. What about
any other movies?
Oh,
oh yeah.
Well, there's some for me that I could say that I've only recently watched that I missed out. Okay. But I want to hear what you're going to bring up. Yeah, all right. You tell me.
So if it's not Smokey and the Bandit, it's the Pork Chop Express. Big Trouble in Little China, which is only loosely based on a truck driver. It's not a truck driving movie.
No.
But it's about a truck driver who is flamboyant and amazing and stupidly heroic and ill-prepared and yet somehow successful. It's more of a science fiction like mystique movie kind of thing, but it's 100% it is a truck driver in that movie. So I call it a truck driving movie.
I am totally with you. And also the name of, the Pork Chop Express, that's just,
I know. Yeah.
Astonishing. I love it. Totally counts. All right.
Okay.
And I only just saw that not super recently. I think I saw it about.
That's the one you only recently saw? Really?
Yeah, that was what I've heard the name. I've heard, that name, Big Trouble in Little China. That is, I knew it was a movie. It's something I've heard of for my whole life.
But now you know it well. You've seen it now, right?
Yes. So, about 2 years ago, I watched it. And
so it's fresh.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty fresh, and I greatly enjoyed it.
Lopan and the Girl with Green Eyes and the Pork Chop Express. And so good. It's so good.
Love that. Yeah, what else did we not met? You mentioned Any Which Way But Loose, or is it Any Which Way You Can?
It's two of them. So the sequel, I forget which way it goes.
Okay.
I think it's Any Which Way But Loose is the first one. Any Which Way You Can is the sequel. I don't know. It's one way or the other, but they're both Clint Eastwood vehicles.
Well, guess what? I'm adding them onto my long watch list because
you oughta.
you got me.
Right turn, Clyde.
That's so. It's so familiar. I had to have seen that. I absolutely had to have.
You had to have. Yeah.
What about Over the Top?
Oh, yeah. So Stallone, but that whole movie takes place pretty much in a truck, and it is about a truck driver trying to reconnect with his son. Yeah. And he's doing the exercises in his truck. He's got the what is it called? The Solo Flex or something in his truck. He's got
Did he have a
pulley,
name? I can't remember.
And he's lifting the weights.
It was a whole pulley system. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. That's another one that
and he's in the competition and he does the Stallone thing. He's got to when he goes over the top with his fingers. Yeah.
Over the top. Yeah, that one I did not see it, back in the day, but I saw it. Maybe that one was about a year ago.
Okay.
And and I enjoyed it. So, but I'm assuming that you saw it back in the 80s. Is that true? You saw it when it came out. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, whenever it came out.
Cool.
Okay. That brings us then to the now part of our 1980s now attempt at filling in without Will. So the good news, Will, is we're almost done. We're almost finished. Good news for you.
Are you awake? Is Will? Wake up.
He's editing. He needs to be. So as I alluded to already, so my connection starts back in the 70s when my family drove trucks to today, where my big brother, who's 10 years older than me, still drives trucks. He's looking to retire now, but he's a driver. When I go and visit him, he's getting calls for potential loads. It's like this load or this load. He's like, well, I got to get permits for that one, whatever. And when you're a truck driver, you're kind of a full-time truck driver. When you're home, you're not driving, but you're looking for the next load. You're waiting for the next opportunity to go out and make money. So
is he an independent owner operator then? Is he
he is an independent owner, but contracts with a company that provides loads to him.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Yeah.
And you can do that now because it's the egalitarianness, that's not the word I'm looking for, but the distribution of stuff on the internet makes it easier to find out who needs loads, who's best suited. So when he gets messages, it's already kind of tailored to him. It's not just somebody on a phone call or a fax or a telex saying load for such and such, do it or not. He can evaluate, like, well, fuel will cost this. No, that load won't pay, those sorts of things. He has calculators he can use to tell him, well, should I do this or not? I have to have a special trailer for a certain oversize, whatever. He knows all that because he's registered that way. And
that's cool.
Used to be, you got what you got. Yeah.
Right. But it's like he can use a filter. He's able to run it through. And very cool. All right. I have to say, I don't mind traveling around trucks. I mentioned earlier, being not right. Like, and I don't, my mom used to complain when she would come out and visit years ago. She'd say, oh, there were too many trucks and, it can feel a bit much. I do not mind it at all, except I don't feel super great about being right next to one and then having like a cement, guardrail without a shoulder. There's just the little something that feels
just the physicality of it.
But yeah. It's like, no, I just want to be, ahead or behind, but they can go past, I can pass them, and I just give them the space that they need. I try to make sure I'm not putting anyone in any danger because they need space, right? They need time and space to function.
Do you think the average driver looks at big rigs, at trucks, at 18-wheelers, which is what people uninformed call them, right?
Right.
Right. But it's technically 19 wheels because of the fifth wheel. Anyway, but did you ever, right? Do you think that average people look at big rigs and trucks as like bullies on the road? That's kind of the impression that I always got. If you don't know them, you probably think, oh, these, shoving me around and bossing me around.
Right.
They're just trying to get from point A to point B at a fixed rate. They don't care about you other than, like you said, give them space, stay out of their way. Because you know what they're doing? Yes. They're taking your stupid toy you want at Target and they're delivering it. So help them out.
Absolutely. I think you're right. I think people do view them as like a hazard or a bully, as you said. It's like, they shouldn't be on here. They shouldn't be on the road I'm on. But and okay, every once in a while, I've observed a trucker maybe who's being a little reckless. Maybe going a little
bossy,
faster than they should, or
they're people.
Well, they are, and indeed. But for the most part, like they're the ones that are they're following the rules of the road, like so many people.
They're probably if you look around on the interstate and you look in your out your windshield and out your rear view mirror.
Yep.
Odds are the people driving trucks are the best drivers on the road in your line of sight.
Yes, I agree, and that's especially true. And I know this now from my journey down to Atlanta and back again.
You drove in Atlanta. That's right. Oh my God. I'm so sorry.
I drove. Oh, John, like I watched the driving deteriorate.
Horrible.
Coming from Pennsylvania.
As you go south, right?
Oh my gosh,
as you go south, it gets worse.
Like Virginia, okay. North Carolina, oh. South Carolina, oh no. And then actually, believe it or not, it got a little bit better closer to Atlanta. I felt like maybe there was a metropolis savvy going on or something. There was something happening there.
And then you got inside the city line.
I didn't even have to do that very much because where we were going, it was just right off the highway.
Yeah.
So I didn't like drive around Atlanta too much. I do know it's famous for challenging driving.
Well, you were very fortunate you didn't come on down to Florida because it gets even worse.
Oh man! Well, I would go down to visit you, and I would put up with it. But the trucks were fine. All the trucks were fine. And I was communicating with them. I was blinking, oh, yep, come on in, giving them space. And it made my day when they blink back, their rear brake lights. I love that.
Yeah, well, you do the thing like you might not know there's like this courtesy thing, right?
Yes.
You can either by flashing your headlights or by blinking your running lights. What you're communicating is you are clear from me up to you, right? Yes. So you're kind of blink, and it was, now I know I can change lanes, right?
And then
because you remember, it's like 60 foot back to the back of that truck or more.
Yes.
And all they rely on is their perception through a mirror, which is already convex and it's difficult to judge distance on. So truckers, I learned that because my dad, my uncle, my brother, they do that. They blink, and it's like, why are you flashing your lights? Well, no, that's a courtesy.
Yeah.
And they're doing that. And not to, speaking of blinkers, they use the blinkers, the turn signals.
They actually use turn
that
signals.
other cars don't use. Yeah, because they communicate what they're doing. If you just pay attention. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I feel like maybe I would have made a pretty good truck driver because I like driving. So? Yeah, I like driving. Okay. And I think I'd have fun with the CB. I'd probably chat on the CB all the time. And I like connecting with people and traveling. So what about you? Do you feel like you were ever drawn in that direction?
I don't think I ever wanted to be a truck driver, even when my dad was. And frankly, my dad would tell me, I'm doing this so you don't have to, is kind of what he would tell me.
Sure.
And which he did. He put me through college. And, and speaking of being a great driver, well, on the topic of my dad, I'll never forget this one line he would tell me, which is, if I'm going somewhere, I'm driving and he tells me to do something, he's riding I'm the driver. He was the passenger, right? When I was young. Yeah. And he would go, well, you need to turn here. And I go, no, I do this. And he said, boy, I have driven more miles backwards than you've driven forwards. Turn here. And he was probably right at that point in my life. Right?
Yep.
But I don't think I wanted to be a trucker, but I love the culture around it. I love being on the road with my dad. I love the secret codes, the 10- code, the 10-4 and the 10-20 and
10-4, what's
and all
your
that
20?
stuff.
Yep.
Yes, of course. You learn all that stuff, which is great. And the looking out, the camaraderie, you're looking out for like, oh, there's a Smokies up here around the corner, slow down. And like you have this, and the cops know you're doing that. But ultimately what cops want is safety on the road. So, okay, you tell each other, but
yeah.
I mean, I guess I don't think I would have been a very good truck driver, but I like riding in a truck with a truck driver who knows what he's doing. So,
or she, I could have taken you along with
or
me.
She, certainly. Okay. If you'd like to drive a big rig through Atlanta, I will ride with you and observe.
You'll ride with me. All right. I'm very, very sure I'm a better driver than my father was. 100%.
Just look, don't flip it over and you're halfway there.
There you go. At least. John, just so you know, the Lehigh Valley, the lovely Lehigh Valley where I live in Pennsylvania, is the home of the Mack truck factory. Where this is
that right?
This is where Mack trucks were made for I don't know how many years. I didn't look up the history, but this
Mack
is it.
truck.
This is the home.
Mack truck is a whole like subculture. Like even outside of truck drivers, having a Mack ball cap or a Mack t-shirt or something. It's that big bulldog. It's almost like a what's it like a Rolls Royce has the big angel with the swept back wings. Like the Mack is the anti Rolls Royce. It's this bully of a bulldog that's up on his hind legs, that chrome dog.
I
knew buddies in high school that had the Mack truck thing on their pickup truck, right? Just because they bolted it on there. They probably stole it off of something. Those, reprobates. But
you are absolutely right. It is just like that. Or a Jaguar, it's like like in contrast to this, sleek, hood ornament. It's a fierce looking bulldog.
Okay.
Very cool.
I think we have given this our best possible effort in absence of our fearless leader.
I think so too. I
hope
to hear what Will thinks of all this.
I can't wait to hear the edit. The edit will be 7 minutes long. Just you wait.
It'll be. I think he'll leave in the news. He'll leave in the 1980s news.
Part of the news will be there. There'll be a small section of news, and then we'll talk about trucks for 2 minutes, and then I will say, "All right, everybody, that was a show."
Oh, and our show is brought to you every week. Almost every week, not last week, but almost every week. And almost not this week, but we saved the day.
Every week that it's brought to you by.
I love that. Yeah. That's excellent qualification. Thanks in part to our early adopters like Karen Fleeger, Rick Parker, and Kathy Burke. Yes. And thank you especially to our Secret of Our Success Level Patreon supporters like Brad Bowman, Marcus Taylor,
man.
Tony Great, Nick Guillory,
Oh, Nick.
Craig Coletta, John Henderson, and
Another John.
Brandon Greer.
Da-da-da!
I promised Brandon a flourish because he was showing off his 1980s style
Oh, well
swag
done.
on Facebook.
That was a nice
Yeah.
flourish. Well done. That was specifically, that was a swag flourish, if ever I've heard one.
Yes, it was.
Okay. Kat, thank you for taking this time with me. Thank you for
John.
colluding to give Will some work, even though he pretended to be sick. So
Yeah. Nice try, Will. Nice try to get out of this, but we're not letting you.
Nope. All right. We will talk to you all next time on 1980s Now. Bye-bye.
Bah, bah.
Love it.